Welcome to the third episode of the Student Recap Podcast. Today I'm here with Benjamin again. Unfortunately, we tried to get somebody else who we will call Burke, but he was not available for this episode. He is a bit unmoderated, so just for the next time he may or may not be on an episode, watch out for that. The episode will be very loud. Okay, so now we're gonna start yapping about the Israel war. October 7th last year, like 340 days ago, Hamas invaded Israel with 6,000 troops and killed 1,000 citizens and took like 250 hostage. And yeah, the war's been going on, and lots of American white students have been protesting about colonialization and genocide when they themselves killed all the Native Americans here and are inhabiting prior lands.
No one that's protesting killed the Native Americans. That was like 200 years ago.
Yeah, but they're like ancestors, I guess.
Okay.
Very silly. Columbia University, probably not gonna go there anymore, or Harvard, or most Ivy League schools. Too much freedom of speech, you know? It gets to a point where it's just, like, annoying and people are just protesting for being on TikTok. Very true.
Very true. TikTok is a weapon used by the CCP to incite riots and protests among the uninformed or disinformed.
Would that mean that Black Lives Matter was controlled by the CCP?
No, but it was made worse by the CCP.
Okay, so continuing on the Israel stuff, basically, the colonialization thing, it's completely debunked by the fact that Arabs, they aren't originally from that area. They came from Saudi Arabia and Yemen, which means they are the migratory ones. They colonized afterwards, after the year 600, and there were already, like, other peoples living there. So it's basically like, it was a multicultural state before, it still is, but one group has a better claim, which is the Jewish people, which is, like, recorded in the Bible, or, like, whatever the children of God are.
Okay, well, most of the protesters are actually protesting the genocide in Gaza, not the colonialization of it, and the,
Well, the thing about that is that nobody's protesting about, like, China killing Uyghurs or Russia, like, doing bad, like, things to its justice system, or the South Sudanese, or, like, a bunch of other genocides in Africa. So it's, like, completely invalid, even if it is true, which it isn't.
What are the odds that Hamas invading Israel on October 7th was actually just Iran seeing how far they could go before the U.S. would intervene?
No, I think it was just a planned attack like 9/11 that
but
was
Hamas
executed.
Hamas is an Iranian-backed terrorist organization. Most of the stuff they do has to be authorized by someone in Iran first.
Yeah, so Iran authorized the strike, whatever. They gave them money and backup for that attack.
Well, also rockets, because 1,000 rockets were fired into Israel on October 7th. Also weapons and ammunition, because Hamas wouldn't have anything if not for Iran.
Yeah, so it's just like the entire proxy network, what is it, like wing of resistance, it's just shell companies for Iran's military, you could say.
They're proxies for Iran, but yeah.
Shell companies, we love offshore references.
Okay.
Next, we will be moving on to how Ukraine is kind of being stupid and invading Russian territory to get back their own territory tit for tat.
Are they being stupid if it's working, though?
Technically, it's working, but look, if they get that equivalent of Russian territory, then
It's going to be the same as if 2024 didn't happen. Yeah, I understand that.
With the trade-off, that land still isn't developed, and it won't be back for civilian use or even military use because it's, like, so bombarded, you could say.
Well, that's the same with the rest of Ukraine that Russia's occupied so far. So, I mean...
Ukraine
Ukraine has currently Ukraine is currently holding the same amount of Russian territory as Russia took from Ukraine in 2024. So they wouldn't get much back if it was square mile per square mile or square kilometer per square kilometer. This is mostly guesswork because we don't know what's going on inside the minds of the Ukrainian generals. But the assumption is that Ukraine invaded the Kursk Oblast in Russia to divert Russian troops from the front line.
Yeah,
but it hasn't worked so far, so either they didn't anticipate the Russian response or that wasn't the main reason.
And also, the Ukrainians they're a bit more equipped than the Nazis or Napoleon when they tried to invade Russia, so it's probably gonna work to an extent that if they have whatever meager supplies still remain. Should we have had military action in Crimea or in the Chechenian War?
Crimea, we should have sent Ukraine more aid, and we should have put even tighter sanctions on Russia, and just ban anything from going in or out of Russia, because they invaded another sovereign country.
Yeah. Well, why is that not the sanctions currently that Russia can't have anything flowing in or out of the country from the US?
From the US, I'm pretty sure. But they just go around sanctions by going through China.
No, and through Dubai. You know, I was listening to this thing. Everybody, every Russian goes to Dubai and they get, their foreign-made cars, and they just import them from Dubai into Russia.
I was referring more to weapon systems, because Russia imports microchips through China.
Oh, microchips,
from Taiwan
I didn't know about that.
And the US. And also from China as well.
So Ukraine has AI-powered drones and whatever now. Do you think Russia is technologically advanced enough to have AI-powered drones, or are they just not focusing on that?
Russia probably also has AI drones. They just don't mention it as much. Probably because it doesn't work well, because Russia.
Yeah.
But the US probably has a similar system. They just don't tell the public about it. And Ukraine, the only point where it would get scary is if they took drone operators out of the equation and authorized AI to drop munitions on anyone they deemed a threat.
Yeah, kind of similar. The Soviets were never good at making their own cars. Well, Russians now, but basically, it's that they're not very good at inventing things, and their AI wouldn't be as advanced as China's or Taiwan's or the US's because they just don't have the motivation within their labor force.
It's like the Su-57 stealth aircraft from Russia that has the same radar cross-section as an F-A-18 Hornet, Super Hornet from the US.
Yeah, I don't know what that military terminology is.
It's a fourth generation low visibility aircraft.
Low visibility stealth bomber.
It's not a bomber, it's a fighter.
Okay, the US shot an American citizen?
Israel shot an American citizen outside of an embassy because they were protesting the Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip.
Well, okay, so basically, I'm pretty sure that was in the West Bank, and due to martial law, they can pretty much just do whatever they want, due to that martial law code, and if you're
I'm pretty
disrupting
sure
the
the
peace,
protest turned a little violent, and that's why they opened fire.
Disrupting the peace, then they have the right to non-lethal defense, you could say.
But if the protest turned violent, then the Israeli military would be authorized to use lethal force to defend themselves.
Question. Is China supporting the Palestinian movement through making the TikTok algorithm put more pro-Palestinian creators?
Oh, absolutely. China can use TikTok ads and just TikToks to basically summon protests in major U.S. infrastructure in order to slow down U.S. economic output by just putting out a post saying, protest on this highway at this time on this day, and then just giving it some ad space on TikTok.
Yeah, so kind of going to microeconomics, then all the students that are protesting and not paying their college loans off, then that affects the universities, and then the universities don't make money, and then without the universities making money, then it affects the alumni of that university, then affecting the economic outturn far in the future. But it does change our workforce in the future, sort of. It's complicated. Yeah, so I believe some schools, they still haven't revised their discrimination policies for this year. Either one, because they don't want to, or two, because these protests haven't affected them. But realistically, there should be an exception for war-based protests, except for that the statements have to be validated prior to the protest. You have to have these slogans checked by the university, because then you can't just be saying stuff. Oh, well, freedom of speech would just override that anyways.
Yeah. But, so the reason why they're protesting is because of the genocide in Gaza, but the genocide wouldn't happen, or it wouldn't be a genocide, it'd just be a number of civilians dying, because but the reason why the number is so big is because Hamas hides under and in hospitals, schools, refugee camps, and other protected structures under the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah, so basically, when the U.S. went into Iraq, we just said number of civilians killed. We never said, we're killing the Iraqis, we're gonna wipe them out. Or even Afghanistan. There was never a notion of that happening. It's just based on that this is Israel, and how both the extreme right and extreme left are using this as a ploy for anti-Semitism.
So, in Afghanistan, the U.S. was trying to set up a government that could support itself. Right now, Israel is trying to guarantee its future by wiping out an Iranian-backed terrorist organization. Yeah, they are terrorists.
But still, comparatively, the U.S. did have civilian casualties in there. In the beginning, that could have been comparable to some days of this war, like the very early ones.
Yeah, but if Israel sees a rocket be launched from, next to a hospital, they're going to hit that, and it's going to cause collateral damage, though.
Yeah, well,
but they have to defend themselves.
Collateral damage is valid. It's just don't complain about it if you put it onto yourself.
That is very debatable.
Well,
on a certain amount of collateral damage.
Okay,
you shouldn't use a 2,000-pound bomb in a super urban area, but you also need to be able to destroy the weapon system that's attacking you.
You can't diminish yourself to the level of the person you're fighting, but you also have to, use some form of force that is more powerful than your enemy. It's just fire with bigger fire.
Yeah, I think the other reason why there's so many civilian casualties is because Israel sees a bunch of Hamas fighters coming out from a building. They'll drop a bomb on the building, regardless of whether or not there's civilians inside, because the civilians are helping Hamas. But also, they don't want to go into the Hamas tunnels, because the U.S. learned that lesson during Vietnam and also World War II, where tunnels are just places you go into. If you don't control them, you're going to die. Yeah,
basically with the tunnels, and it even started a few years ago, Israel was going to have to block off the exits because illegal goods were getting smuggled into Gaza, and they had to cut off the access and map all the tunnels in order to make sure that those illegal weapons and other products were not getting into the hands of possibly terrorists. What's your opinion on the group Queers for Palestinians or whatever?
Gays for Palestine?
Oh, Gays for Palestine.
So,
wrong terminology.
We're gonna take the group that is basically murdered by the Palestinians under Sharia law, and we're going to have them support the people that kill them. That's basically gays for Palestine.
It's like, I don't know. It's very self-contradicting. Look, okay, I'm gonna not believe the Sharia law, but it's definitely not accepted.
You're not going to believe Sharia law, which is what
I'm not
the
gonna
Taliban
believe
is
that
entirely doing, and then
Okay.
what Hamas also believes in.
Yes, believes in, but is executed. Where's the proof of that Sharia law is executed?
Go to any video from the Afghanistan or Iraq war and just look up Sharia stoning squads.
Oh yeah, no.
They'll
I
stone
understand that
women
happens.
and gays to death.
Yeah, but like that's also present in a few special states of Indonesia, which are kind of controversial. But no, specifically in Gaza, has there been recorded evidence of Sharia
There's
law?
evidence of Hamas executing Israeli hostages before Israel gets to the hostages.
No, but
I don't-
specifically Sharia law.
I'm
like
not
a video.
aware of any current video evidence of Hamas executing people under Sharia law. But they have executed hostages.
Okay, also, this is going to be pretty controversial, but from what I can tell, not all women in Gaza are required to cover their hair and bodies fully, correct? And that is a aspect of Sharia law.
I don't really know that part. I mostly focus on the military aspect of the
Well,
Israeli invasion of
You
Gaza.
have to understand some depth within the culture to understand the side.
I understand Sharia law. I'm not aware of to what extent it is enforced inside of the Gaza Strip.
Okay, so also connected to the Israel war, we have the Houthis in Yemen, those silly guys. They're also a proxy from Iran.
Yep.
But the only problem is with that
They're
is that
threatening global shipping and driving up shipping costs by hiking up the cost of shipping insurance through the Red Sea, right? I think.
Gulf of Aden? No, Red Sea.
Yeah. So
Strait of Hormuz.
haven't
That's
they
the specific-
sank like 3 or 4 ships so far?
And yeah, it's a lot of ships.
They claim that they're shooting at any ships that are connected to Israel or the U.S., but it's like 8 degrees of separation, and they've been known to shoot at any ship that they can instead of actually ships related to the U.S. or Israel.
And the thing is that they're actually still in like a civil war kind of, in which Saudi Arabia is fighting for the government, but the government's like super exiled. They only have a city or two still under their control, and the Houthis, they just have more brute force, and they're in control of the country currently.
The Houthis control half the country. There's like 2 other groups that control parts of Yemen, though.
Yeah, and actually the Houthis, they like took over one of the groups that was supposedly the government. It was like People's Ruling Party, whatever. One of those like weird named ploy or like falsely named groups that actually have a different incentive or a motive. And the thing about Saudi Arabia is that they're accused of doing some heinous stuff in their attacks in Yemen. Yeah, human rights violations. They may or may not have bombed indiscriminately.
I mean, but a lot of people do that. Like
Hamas
Hamas. The Hamas launches thousands of rockets into heavily populated areas.
Okay,
you
yeah.
cannot tell me that's not indiscriminate bombing.
Okay, well, let me correct you. It's indiscriminate rocketing. They do not possess planes, which is not bombing.
It's missile attacks.
Indiscriminate missile attacks. That is the correct terminology we will use.
Okay,
Because
but
there
it
is-
still doesn't make it any better.
Yeah.
That they intentionally target large, heavily populated civilian areas.
It doesn't. Yeah, because there's like no airstrip in Gaza. Oh yeah, good idea. Let's make an airstrip out of the rubble because it's all flat.
It's not flat. Bomb craters are not flat.
Surely they have some construction equipment, right?
Yeah, for building the tunnels.
Yeah,
they'd have to retrain the people to build above ground.
Where's all the UN money going now? Dubai.
UNRWA? You mean the organization run by Hamas, where they just take the funds and the food and they give it to their fighters?
Well, okay, now their leaders, I think there's only like 2 or 3 out of the 5 major ones left. Israel was able to assassinate most of them.
You say assassinate, they dropped a massive bomb on most of them.
It still was targeted and killed the enemy, which is
fair enough.
The definition of assassinate. Yeah, so we use a lot of loose terminology and slang to represent our ideas. Hopefully you can decipher them. Thank you for watching the 3rd episode of Student Recap Podcast. This was episode 3, Great Geopolitics. Also, this episode was with my co-host Benjamin. There will be an extra episode this week, so look out for that. It's gonna be special, so you better watch it. And next main show will be on the 22nd of September, so yeah, look out for that too. Bye.